This video I want to make it about comparing using the relatively new Canson Mi-Teintes Velvet paper as opposed to the traditional Pastelmat that we're all used to. I'm not going to go into too much of the differences between the two apart from the weight. The Pastelmat card, so this is the sheets, not the board, is 360 gm squared, so grams per metre squared, 170 pound in weight, and that's just the thickness, the weight of the paper. When we talk about that, it's the thickness of the paper. And the Velvet is, in comparison, 430 grams per metre square, or 264 pounds. So it is a thicker, heavier weight paper or card. Both kind of designed for the same thing. They're both aimed at the pastel market, but as colour pencil artists, we do tend to use Pastelmat at the moment and textured papers for our colour pencil work. But obviously it is mainly designed for a pastel artist. Other main difference, two of them I found, to be honest. When I first opened the Velvet package, the colours are given here along the bottom. This blue, navy blue and a dark grey, but when I opened them I found that the colours, this is supposed to be the light blue, and it's far from this light blue. The dark blue is here, so close, but the grey is supposed to be this, like a mid-grey, and it's not, it's a lot darker. And compared to the Pastelmat when we get it, each sheet of the Pastelmat card is interleaved with a sheet of glassine or crystal paper, and when you go through the Velvet pad there is nothing, no interleave there, nothing that you can protect your sheets from, so it does make it more susceptible to scratches, marks, etc. And also if you're working in your pad, then there's nothing to drop down over the top to protect that work. So because the mid-grey, the dark grey here, is so dark, I've matched it up to the closest to the Pastelmats that I can find, which is the anthracite. So I want to do some side-by-side swatching with several of my main brands of colour pencil, and then I'm going to do a project if I enjoy working on it and I can get some success quite easily, because we don't want this to be a battle. If this is supposed to be an alternative for our work on Pastelmat because of the production issues and quality issues that we've all had with Pastelmat over the years, this needs to be as easy and as nice to work on as the Pastelmat is. Despite its issues, we know what the issues are and we know the workarounds as well. We know how it layers, we know we can trust it to do pretty much what we want it to do and push it to many limits. I want to see if the Velvet comes close. I don't want to have to adapt my techniques or my style too much to have to work on the Velvet paper, because that's kind of forcing something which isn't what I'm about, and I don't see why any piece should be too much of a battle. You should be able to enjoy how you work, what you create, and that includes the materials that you use. So I'm going to get some pencils together of some of my main brands and some of the main artists and professional brands that we all use, and we're going to do some swatching and a little bit of colour mixing, and we're going to do it side by side. So I'll have a sheet of the Velvet and a sheet of Pastelmat. We're going to look close up and I'm going to talk you through the feel of those pencils going down, and we'll also see the results. Now this is completely new to me, so let's just see how we get on. Okay, so here we've got our Velvet paper on the left and our Pastelmat on the right. And I've got a selection of red, yellow, blue, white, black of, I'd say, my leading brands here. So we've got Polychromos, we've got Pablos, we've got Luminance, and I've got Lightfast. And what I've done is I've got the closest match red, yellow, blue from each of those brands. I considered using Prismacolor as well, because I know a lot of people do use Prismacolor, but I don't, so I'm sticking to the ones that I use the most here. And we'll just see how we get on. We'll do some lay down of just a few layers, we'll do some mixing and blending, we'll see whether we can go in with a sharp pencil over the top and get our lights over darks. That's basically the key elements I'm looking for in this comparison. So let's just dive in. I'm going to zoom in for you and we will see how we get on with those initial lay down of strokes. Okay, the first pencils I'm going to start with are my Polychromos, most used pencils, also the most translucent, and I'm guessing between those and the Pablos are the hardest pencils I'll be using today. I have noticed straight away though that you notice a little bit darker anyway. The velvet paper is picking up some bits of dust much more readily than my Pastelmat, and it's more difficult to remove, so I will need to try erasing, so with my magic eraser, to see what I can lift away. So I'm going to just go in and do like I do with a regular pressure test. Just move this over a tiny little bit there. There we go. So I'm going to come in with the lightest of pressure here and start to build my pressure as we come across until I'm pressing as hard as I can there. Okay. It feels like, I don't know, it feels quite smooth. So let's come in, get my Pastelmat feels like there's more grip. And I think you can see that as well from how much pigment it grabbed there at the beginning. I'm just going to work my way through, just warming my hands and my pencils up. So I'll come in with the black, the lightest of touches there. Initial touchdown makes me feel like there is less tooth on this left hand side on this velvet. Okay, black's not showing up obviously a huge amount because of the dark colour of the paper itself. So let's come in with, so the reds I'm using for this one is, I've got light cadmium red, dark cadmium yellow, and helio blue reddish. I tried to make sure I got 3 red, yellow and blue that are a good cross-reference in each of my other brands, so that we can aim for some similar results. Okay. Anyone that knows me, the pressure test is something I always get everyone to do at a workshop so they can get a feel for their paper, especially if they've not used it before. So left hand side, it's called making your pencils, taken from a whisper to a shout. So on the left hand side, we're literally touching the pencil to the paper, and as we come along we build up that pressure until at this end we're pressing as hard as we can. So it's all about how much grip and tooth there is in the paper as to how much pigment it will grab. So where we literally just touch, you can feel the pencil touching the paper here on the left hand side. As we move our way across, we're starting to use pressure from our hand to increase the lay down. But where we are literally just touching our pencil to the paper, this area here shows how much tooth there is, so how much it's going to grip your pigment, how much it's going to grab it. So the more tooth there is, the more it will grip the pigment, colour pencil, pastel, whatever the pigment is, any dry pigment that is. And there is a difference here that I can feel as well, tactile. I can feel that the Pastelmat is picking up more pigment than the Velvet at this point. But we're going to do some colour mixing, and then we're going to try and layer and put some more, see which one has got some tooth left after some layers, that we can get lights over darks, which is one of the key things, the key elements, qualities that we look for in a textured paper. So I'm going to finish doing this, do some colour mixing and some blending, and then try and get some detail over the top. That's what we're aiming for, starting off with just brush test. And I'm going to work my way through doing this with each of the ranges. So I'm going to do a regular speed with our first one, the Polychromos, and then for our other 3 brands, we are going to do them. I'm just going to speed it up a little bit so we get to the finish a bit quicker, or you get to the finish a bit quicker, and then we'll just come back and review in real time. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little bit of blending now, just with my white and my black. I'm just counting my layers. 4. I'm just going to get some lay down. So I've got 5 layers there with my white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm using kind of like the light to medium pressure, but you can see how light this has come out already over on our Pastelmat. So what I'll do is now I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to come in, I do this on, I've already shown this on Pastelmat before, so I thought it'd be a good one to try and do it on the Velvet. We just build up the layers and see how many layers we take to fill the tooth and smooth it out. So I've done another 5 layers, and that's with the black. I should have drawn a square out, shouldn't I? So now I'll repeat this with Pastelmat. And the darker shades of the Pastelmat has got more tooth, more grip. It's just a fact. Okay, so I'm going to come across now and we'll go the other way. So I'll do 5 this way. I can already feel, but it doesn't feel like there's much tooth there at all. 3. It's not really very smooth. You can kind of see the pencil marks going down. But we'll carry on and just see what happens. That's 5 layers. Same here with our Pastelmat. Two, 3, 4, 5. So that's 15 layers. Obviously, just a back and forth over the top. So I'm going to do my black again. Coming across again. 2, 3, 4, 5. There's definitely more tooth on the Pastelmat. 3, 4, and that is not a bad thing. 5. It's not a bad thing, but it all comes down to those later layers. Okay, so we know we've got 15 layers down. And we know that we can take these layers on the right hand side on the Pastelmat a lot further, so I'd like to think we can do more on the left hand side on the velvet as well. But what I want to do is I'm just going to sharpen up my polychromos. I'm going to come in with heavier pressure and see if we can do our flicks. So I'm going to come in over the top here. I'm really hopeful that this works. And I'm just going to do some flicks. This is on my heaviest pressure. Trying to get some flicks to show up. Not great, not great. So, sharpen up again. Let's come in on our Pastelmat. So I think it's pretty obvious and clear there. The difference. Hardly any tooth here on the left hand side. Wouldn't even say it's that even, because in places, okay, my lay down might not be exactly even, but it's not far off when I do my layering. With my pressure, I've used pretty much the same pressure on both sides to do those flicks. It's pretty obvious, I think, the difference there. Okay. So, we'll carry on though. We'll carry on and we'll do some more colour blending and we'll see how much the colours blend. Like I say, I'm not doing a huge in-depth thing with this. It's just, it should be quite evident, which it is, on the layering. And that is the key thing that I do in my work. And I like to build lots of layers, create lots of smoothness and depth and tone, and then I go in with details. If I can't get those details over the top, there's no point in trying, because I'm not changing my techniques that much to suit the paper when I've already got a paper here that I know I can 95% rely on. Okay, right, on to doing a little bit of colour blending then. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of colour blending, just like we did with the black and the white, and I'm just going to mix red and yellow, my yellow and blue, and just see again, but I'll alternate the layers this time. So I'll come in with a layer of yellow. You'll see I'm not doing it super super neat. Don't need to stay inside the lines, and this way I can keep a nice consistent pressure as well. So we're just going to see how we get this laid down. I'm just going to alternate my directions as well. It's already getting more vibrant over there, which means, I say, it's grabbing more tooth. I think on the left hand side it's going to give you a much more subtle outcome, so less vibrant. And also, of course, I don't think we're able to get those details in as well. Let's give it a nice mix. Do you know what? I haven't been counting the layers, but it doesn't matter. What I'm going to do is just carry on. Just mixing and blending how I regularly would with my Pastelmat. So I'm watching my Pastelmat. Oopsie. As long as I know that I'm doing the same on both sides, I'm using about a medium pressure here. I can still see that the Pastelmat is really picking up. The pigment a lot better. It's just more vibrant. Obviously the pigment's still going down over on this left hand side but I think what it is, it's just mixed and blending with the pigment that's already sat on the surface, rather than it gripping the actual surface, the velvet itself. On the right hand side I can still feel some tooth. Okay. So you can see the vibrancy there. Yes, this is slightly darker paper. That's nothing to do with it. If this paper was slightly darker, it would be just as vibrant. Definitely more teeth. Which would, like I say, it's got its advantages. The thing that's frustrating me is still this here. The fact that I couldn't get those flicks over the top. So what I'm going to do again is just sharpen up this yellow and see if I can get nice and sharp any detailing in over on this velvet. So again, I'm going to come in, super heavy pressure, and I feel that it's just scraping away the pigment rather than laying over the top. It's just kind of scraped the pigment away. Let's try over here on the right hand side on the Pastelmat, exactly the same. So that's gripped the paper. I'm going to zoom in just so you can see that a little bit closer as well. Okay. Let me just sharpen that up. There we go. So you can see here, I've got my flicks. Here, it's just scraped through the pigment. The pigment's not on this pigment that we've been layering. It's not sticking to the surface. It's just sticking to the previous pigment layers. So coming in with a sharp pencil, it's just kind of scraped at it. One thing I am going to try whilst I'm here is, when we're zoomed in, I'm just going to bring in a blade and just lift away with my blade. Okay, so it lifts away okay. I'll show you on the Pastelmat. So you can lift away, but even lifting away, the Pastelmat is lifted away better. I don't know what the velvet is actually made of. Maybe I need to investigate a bit more into the makeup of it. Like I said, I haven't paid it a super amount of attention. Okay, let's do exactly the same anyway. Let's mix and blend and see if we can get a nice green. So I'm going to be using that same dark cadmium yellow and my Helio Blue Reddish here. And we're going to do exactly the same here on this right hand side. So again, I'm just going to come in. Let's layer nice and quickly and start to get a nice build up. Doesn't need to be super accurate, like I say, I'm not worried about staying inside of these lines. It's just to get some pigment down. Just have a feel for this. I'm just rotating different directions these pencils just to make sure I'm filling the tooth nicely. I'm glad I didn't take the time just to do a full colour wheel, because that would have been so laborious and also frustrating. Okay. I'm using the blunt end of my pencil here because it feels like it wants to go down a little bit more smoothly. Can you see that? Where I've used the blunt end. On the right hand side on our Pastelmat, you can just see that tooth a little bit more than you can here. So I'll do the same. I'll use the blunt end of my yellow. And when you put a light down over a dark on a textured paper, it starts to just smooth it out anyway. So I'm just going to use my smooth end again. Feels very similar on these two colours. It's just about the different colours and pigments going down. There is no written rule. Be interesting what happens when I do this with the other pencils. I move along. Okay, so I'll sharpen up my yellow again and come in over the top and see what we get. Nice and sharp. Okay, so again, not great, not very consistent. Let's try it with Pastelmat. Completely different kettle of fish. We get, it's almost like, right, so the whole thing with the velvet is it's supposed to be really smooth and uniform, and everyone says that the Pastelmat isn't. I'm getting a much smoother result, much more even, consistent result in that whole of that stroke, whereas here you can see it grips, then it doesn't, then it grips, then it doesn't, cuts through, yeah. You can tell the Pastelmat is winning. So, apart from, let's move down once more, maybe just coming in, what I'll do is I'll just come in with my white pencil and just do just some lines, okay? And let me just do a little turn in pencil sharpener to make sure that this is sharp again, that's fine. And I'll do exactly the same here, so we'll just do a flick, 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 zigzag. This shows you the tooth, okay? So much smoother paper, not as much grit. It's gonna grab your pencils, it's not gonna allow you to do your lights over darks, not using polychromos. We're gonna see what comes out. The Pastelmat has definitely got more tooth, more grit. To me, it's still giving me a much more even lay down. And yes, it's going to take more layers to get to the point where I can smooth these strokes out. That's fine. I know that. I love that. It's one of the things I embrace about working on Pastelmat. I know we're talking colour pencils, but yeah. Let me just carry on. I'll do exactly the same as we've done here with the other three brands. Maybe we'll find a combination that works better. Maybe the polychromos just isn't, you know, what isn't suited. We'll see. Okay, so I'm speeding up for the next part. Okay, so the finish of these tests. You might think, well, was there any point to doing them? Yes, there was. I'm going to give my personal opinion here. So, would I be swapping out my Pastelmat for the Canson Velvet at this point in time? It's a definite no. Do I feel that Canson Velvet will have a place within the colour pencil market? Possibly. I think it's going to be a case of people that are coming in that are new, that may not have tried Pastelmat before, could buy the, could purchase the Canson Velvet. It'd be the first thing that they try, and so they will get used to it and find their way with it quite easily. For myself, there was an instant thing, especially when even the first point I'd laid down my polychromos here, and then on the Velvet, as soon as I came across to the Pastelmat, the grip was just so much better for me. Now, that combined with not being able to get these flicks to go over, and again, this isn't a huge amount of layers really, but to get those, not be able to get those flicks to go over the top, it's a little bit frustrating, more than a little bit frustrating. But saying that, I might have a go at doing a small tutorial, a small little project on the Velvet, but it's going to be a smooth project. And I think I would treat it more, not like a smooth paper, it's like something in between. You don't need to preserve your lights, but you need to think ahead that, okay, I'm not going to be able to get those flicky details in over the top as much. And also it comes down to a choice of which pencil. So I was thinking I might do, I've got a picture of some cherries which would, you know, build up a nice bright, smooth. I'm thinking smooth subjects. Smooth and shiny would work really well. It's more the fur and the texture and the detailing that I'm kind of, it doesn't work as well for me as the Pastelmat. It's as simple as that. But when it comes to pencils, you can see with the polychromos, especially on the colour mixing here, the Pastelmat just grabbed a lot more pigment, simple as. Same at the top with the pressure test, the Pastelmat grabbed more pigment. With the lines going down, they're much smoother, so there's less tooth. What I might do is I'm going to pop this under a microscope and have a look at it as well. That's the best way of seeing what the tooth is like. But I think this is a much more uniform and finer tooth than the Pastelmat. And yes, it's one of the things with the Pastelmat that it is irregular and it can be frustrating. I prefer it still. I kind of know it, even with its little quirks and improbabilities, it still performs better for colour pencil than the Velvet. But there is a place for this Velvet. I'm thinking maybe even portraits, as in human portraits, any smooth subjects. But if you are thinking, so that's the polychromo side by side, here's the Pablo side by side. Again, much duller grabbing my more opaque Pablos than polychromos. This is the Pastelmat version, much brighter again. The two lots of pencils that worked the best on our Velvet were the Luminance and the Lightfast, especially the Luminance. So here we have our Luminance, Velvet, Pastelmat, Lightfast, Pastelmat, Velvet. I'd say that the Luminance performs better, marginally. For grip, for our light over dark, and if you compare that, the light over the dark flicks, to the polychromos, which is pretty much non-existent scratching, it works pretty well. So Luminance, again, if I was going to do another project, I'm going to grab Luminance and Lightfast. Mix of the both, or just possibly the luminance. Like I say, it's pretty good, but still not that tactile nice feel that I get with my Pastelmat. So those are my views. Those are the results, and this is the kind of standard little pressure test, layering test, and strokes that I do when testing any pencils, any paper, because it just kind of makes it visible. It's a real quick one to get a lovely instant feel for how something works. Obviously Prismacolor might work quite well on this, but then I thought that with my Pablos, and my Pablos did not, they're opaque, they didn't grip that great. So try it and see, but only if you can get hold of a sheet or some sample sheets, which they do send out. Have a go at it. You can see here how bright that luminance is compared to the polychromos test, and the Pablos. So yeah, it's quite evident, I think, just even seeing that little display there. And again, it depends what you're aiming for. You might be aiming for something a lot more subtle. You want something more dull, go with a polychromo or pro colour. This is so individual, and that's why I haven't gone ahead, just plowed ahead and created a tutorial of a subject that I would do, because it's too personal. This is a much more general visual test, just to show you what I think and, like I say, how those pencils perform on the Canson Velvet. So let me know if you try it, if you have tried it, what your results were, in comparison as well to the UArt, to the Lux Archival, and of course to our Pastelmat. Okay, so I hope that has helped. Might have confused you more, but no, I mean, I've done that testing, that should help at least point you in the direction of, or away from, spending money on a very expensive new paper. Okay, thanks very much guys, and I will speak to you all again very soon.